They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmers podcast.
Welcome into the program, everybody. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz. And this is the Benchwarmers podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be accessing our fine program today, we appreciate you taking some time to spend it with us. We are going to try to make it worth your while. And I think we're going to do so this week. We have Super Bowl. I don't know if you've been hiding under a rock. Super Bowl is coming up quickly. We're going to make some predictions, picks, break it down a little bit, coming up a little bit later in the show. We have awards coming next week. They're going to be interesting. We call them the Benchies. I'm going to tease that right now. That's for next week. You know, there's MVP award, there's Rookie of the Year award. We have our own special skewed negative awards that I think you should tune in for next week. You can follow us along on the iHeartRadio podcasting app. We're also proudly part of the Amazon podcasting group, Spotify, Apple, Google. You know where to find us. If you're listening right now, that's where you found us. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, at the Benchwarmers podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter. Jose, this is my favorite and least favorite part of the year. Super Bowl, it's the climax. It's coming, and then it's gone, and we're left with nothing. I feel this hard, empty hole in my heart for months and months and months, and I just sit and be sad because football's over. And
well, at least the one thing about the NFL now is that the off season is almost like a second season now, because as soon as the Super Bowl's over, then you're going to see all the free agency moves, and then it's the action's not going to stop. We're going to be talking NFL basically the entire year, so we're fine.
We're going to keep NFL talk going year round. It's for sure. And the off season has already started in some cases. Starting right off, we'll just jump right into it. This week in sports, some NBA stuff coming up in a little bit that's going to round out our This Week in Sports. But to start off, This Week in Sports, Matt Stafford, the trade that rocked the world. Matt Stafford traded I almost said St. Louis Rams, to the Los Angeles Rams. And Jared Goff heads to Detroit, presumably for his career to die, where most careers go to die in Detroit. Right off the bat, Jose, what just knee-jerk reaction when you saw this trade?
Well, I immediately thought it was a win for the Lions because, I'm just going to start on the Lions side of the ball. They were going to be terrible with Matthew Stafford this year. I don't think anyone thought that they were contending for anything. They were going to be terrible, just like they were last year and the year before that and the year before that and so on. Now, to get Goff, they're still going to be terrible, but now they get 3 extra picks. 2022 first rounder, 2023 second, 2023 first rounder, and a third rounder this year. So to me, it's an easy win for the Lions in the sense that they're still going to be trash, but now they have extra picks. On the Rams side of the ball, Goff is certainly, Stafford is certainly an upgrade over Goff. I'm not saying that, but I don't really look at the Rams as a huge Super Bowl contender right now. I know that Vegas really likes them. I would put them behind the Buccaneers, behind the Packers, probably behind the Seahawks as well, or maybe like right in that area with the Seahawks. Kind of, I don't know. We'll see what other teams do in the offseason. I'm glad they've upgraded their position to try and make a run while especially looking at their cap situation over the next few years. But I'm not looking at this as like a huge needle mover for the Rams.
Yeah, I think that the biggest win for the Rams is that they unloaded that monstrous contract that Jared Goff had, which, that sparked an entire debate with us off air.
For a whole week.
Yeah, it's been ongoing, and we'll get to that in a second. But the Lions, took Jared Goff, and they believe that he's good enough to be their starter for at least the foreseeable future, which is debatable. And they did. You're right. I think that the picks that they got, depending on how the Rams finish, because those first round picks could end up being late first round picks if the Rams are as successful as they seem to believe they're going to be with Matt Stafford. But still, 3 picks to the Lions, and then you kind of have to eat that contract. It's a pretty good situation to be in if you're Lions, because you have a I'll say adequate starter at quarterback, I guess. And also, an interesting note, this was the first time in NFL history that teams have swapped number 1 draft picks It's never
I
happened.
didn't know that.
This, though, the big thing that I'm interested in, and I don't know what to say as far as how well the Rams are going to do, but this is going to be a defining year, this year, next year, for Matt Stafford. And I think we've often argued about this. Shocking, we've argued about a lot of stuff. But Matt Stafford, I've always been pretty high on Matt Stafford from a talent perspective. I thought that he was, like a lot of other players that have floundered in Detroit, has been underutilized, has not been, he's had a top 10 defense, I think, once in his career. He's just been surrounded by ineptitude at every turn. And now all of that is taking away. He has a great supporting cast. He's got Cam Akers, they have Cooper Kupp, Woods is there. I mean, he's got a great team around him. He's got an all-world defense, Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. So there's no more excuses for Matt Stafford. He's 32. He's going to be 33. So he's still in his prime. And it's do or die. I mean, this is going to make or break kind of Matt Stafford's career, where we're going to see, was it Matt Stafford that was causing Detroit to not really progress, or was it Detroit that was holding Matthew Stafford back? And now he's also got a great coach for the first time ever. I mean, it's, he's also not, well, he's in a division with Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, but he's not in a division with Aaron Rodgers anymore. So I guess I don't know if that's not exactly any better, but the team around him is better. And I think that the Rams, I don't think that the Rams are Super Bowl bound next season, but I think that they're going to do much better than they did this year.
Well, just to tackle the one thing you said about Matthew Stafford, listen, I don't think Matthew Stafford's a bad quarterback. I think he's a good quarterback, but one of the things I look at when a team drafts a quarterback, and especially in the first round that high, does the team instantly get better? And you saw some improvements, right? The year before they drafted Matthew Stafford, they were 0-16. So it's kind of hard to not be better than that. But he's been there for 12 years. 4 winning seasons. I guess that's okay. It's not great. I'm not saying that Matthew Stafford is the reason that they've lost, but he certainly hasn't been the reason that they've won. And I think that he could shoulder some of the blame as to why the team really is still in the basement. When he got there, they're in the basement. He's leaving, they're in the basement. They haven't really been out of the basement for much time. And so it's hard for me to really look at him and say, oh, well, he's a great quarterback, because I just haven't seen him really elevate the team the way you see other great quarterbacks do it. Now, in fairness, the Lions have been poorly managed for a long time.
Forever.
And and I'm sure that, had Matthew Stafford been drafted by any number of other franchises, we would be looking at him much differently. As far as the Rams being better this coming year, I don't know. They have to reach the NFC Championship to be better, right? Like that's the standard. They got to the second round of the playoffs with Jared Goff as their quarterback. So, and the only way they can get better is if they go one game further. So I'm not picking them to go to the NFC Championship game right now like that. If you told me, hey, put $20 on one team to hit, or two teams to make the NFC Championship, I don't think the Rams would be in my list there. So that's where I'm kind of taking a wait and see attitude. Like I said, he's definitely better than Jared Goff, but I don't know that they really make some Super Bowl contenders, which is the point.
Yeah, and outside of Megatron, I don't think that Matt Stafford has had. I mean, they've had a bottom tier defense pretty much the entire time they've been there. They've had one of the worst running games in the league for the entire tenure that Matt Stafford has been there. Just, for example, 2011, Matt Stafford attempted 663 pass attempts. In 2012, he attempted 727. And he completed over 400 in both years. I mean, that's you can't live like that, especially with a team that I've been looking through, and I've been looking to try to find all of the Pro Bowlers that Matt Stafford has played with outside of Calvin Johnson.
It's probably not too many.
Darius Slay, if you count defense, and then it's really no one. Like there's almost nothing that I've come across that he's played with.
Well, and that's the thing. You and I were talking about when you pay quarterbacks, or what you have to do.
TJ Lang is their tackle. He made the Pro Bowl in 2017.
Okay, I never even heard of him.
Their punter actually made the Pro Bowl last season. So
well, when you're on a bad team, you're punting all the time, I guess.
A lot of practice.
But yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not saying that Matthew Stafford hasn't had or has had a lot of help or whatever. He certainly hasn't. But like when you pay a quarterback, which they did, and they paid him at the top of the market at the time when he got paid, it's still not the case right now. But
he got paid coming out. He was the last. I think he was the last one that got before.
Yeah.
Rookie
or maybe
contract
it was
started.
Sam Bradford. I don't remember who it was, but yeah, it was one of those guys. But either way, I
think Matt Stafford was the one before that.
They just haven't drafted well. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. In the NFL, unlike the NBA, right, where you just have one or two good players and it's just whatever, who cares about the rest of your team. The NFL, you have to draft well every year. And the Lions haven't drafted well in any year. So, of course, he's been bad. I just, at this stage of if they had made this trade for Matthew Stafford in year 5, yeah, I'd be all about. At this point in the last few years, I haven't seen much from Matthew Stafford that makes me think that he's going to be a significant upgrade over Jared Goff. I mean, we'll see, but I just haven't. I'm just waiting to see.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for how someone works with team chemistry, and again, I think that this is the be all end all for Matt Stafford. I think if he wants to be thought of as a good quarterback or a great quarterback, he needs to have success. You can't have the career that he's had in terms of wins and losses. While it's not all on the quarterback, it certainly gets reflected in the quarterback. He has he has the stats. The stats are
there.
Good. His stats are he's 45,000 yards he's passed for. He's 282 touchdowns, 144 interceptions. Not great, not awful. And he's 62.6 completion percentage career. So I mean,
which is lower than I would have expected, to be honest with you. I would have thought it was higher than that.
His early years, he was not great. He was just over 50% for a lot of those years. So it's certainly gotten much better in the last 5 years, 6 years or so. But this has to be it. I mean, there's no way that I feel like there's no more excuses for Matt Stafford. So
one thing to just add in, you were talking about Goff is now going to be on Lions. Just lastly, the Rams still will be taking $22.2 million of his salary this next year. So that's part of the reason why they're still over the salary cap by a considerable amount heading into 2021.
In other news, staying with the Matthews, Matthew Ryan reportedly will not be traded, which I guess no news is still news in a way. And also, Packers general manager Brian Gunquist says not only will Aaron Rodgers be back in Green Bay in 2021, but in 2022 and beyond as well. They aren't trading Rodgers, and he's not retiring. So either reaction to either of those quarterbacks that are apparently not leaving their situation.
Well, I think it's silly not to trade Matt Ryan. I don't actually know off the top of my head what Matt Ryan's salary is. I'm sure he's somewhere in the top 10 of highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, but he's basically only going to depreciate at this point. Like, I don't see any way that Matt Ryan next year somehow increases his value, right? There's almost no way that's going to happen. So unless the Falcons think, hey, we're going to be good this coming year, which I don't think that's the case. Not only do they have to trade Matt Ryan, I think they need to trade Julio Jones as well, because he's just not. Once again, he's not going to be adding value. He's only going to be losing value. So to not trade those guys right now while you still have a chance to, look what you just got for Matthew Stafford. What would you? I think you'd have to get something similar for Matt Ryan, like in the ballpark. Matt Ryan's a little bit older than Stafford, so maybe not quite the same number, but it would be close. Probably 2 first-round picks, maybe a first and a second, something like that. And then if you trade Julio Jones, you also would almost definitely get another first-round pick. So I think it's silly. And as far as Aaron Rodgers, I mean, I don't know what else you're going to say at this point. He's on the team here. He wants another contract. So I guess if they give him another contract, I'll believe it. But the fact that they drafted Jordan Love in the first round of this past draft, traded up to get him,
yep.
I find it hard to believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to still be on this team in 3 years.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers, I mean, that's the one thing that immediately comes to mind is, okay, well, the GM's saying Aaron Rodgers not going anywhere for a long time. So then why did you waste your first-round pick on a quarterback? I mean, that's the only thing I could think of is that maybe they're kind of behind, they're behind the times with NFL, how contracts work and how good rookie quarterbacks are these days, and that they're just looking at, let's do what we did because it worked last time. And that's not a good way to measure success, is that, okay, well, we drafted Aaron Rodgers and then he sat behind Brett Favre for 3 years. And now he's the best quarterback in the league or one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So let's just do that again. And we'll have this guy sit behind the best quarterback in the league. And then he'll be the best quarterback in the league. Like that's the only way that I can think of they did what they did for any sort of reason, because you talking out both sides of your mouth. Well, no, our starting quarterback's not going anywhere. So, okay, why did you draft his replacement then so soon? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, maybe they want a good backup. That's the only thing I think. But yeah, you're right. Why would you trade up to get a backup?
Backup. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
Agreed. As a backup, wouldn't you want a backup who has experience? I mean, there's plenty of, Case Keenum floating around out there. I don't know. I mean,
then you have to pay them though, right? Like it's better, but then you have to pay the first round or two. So no, you're right. I was just trying to think of any reason why they would have done it, and yeah, you're probably right. Yeah.
Matt Ryan. I mean, I think a little differently with the Falcons. I can see why they would keep. I mean, I think it's you keep both of them or you keep none of them. I think it's you keep Matt Ryan and Julio Jones or you get rid of Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, because Calvin Ridley's still young and he's coming on strong. But the Falcons last year, although they only won 4 games, they were competitive in almost every game, and with a few outliers. But they were close. Remember the game they blew out the Raiders 43-6?
Yeah,
it just embarrassed them. The Cowboys game that they just had a mental lapse and just made the dumbest decision of the entire season with the kick. It just, there's so many things that they were so close and on the verge of being good and winning so many more games. And now with the Saints, Drew Brees, no one knows what. I mean, all signs point to Drew Brees retiring this year, and then the Saints are in a salary cap hell, so they don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. Obviously the Bucs are going to be a problem, and the Panthers are still kind of in the mid. They're in purgatory. They're not good, they're not bad, they're sort of just hanging out there. I think the Falcons could have a resurgent year if they just got their act together, and now that Dan Quinn's gone, maybe that can happen.
Well, here's I would agree somewhat, but if you just look at it, in 2016 they went to the Super Bowl. Matt Ryan's the MVP. Since then, 10-6, 7-9, 7-9, 4-12. They're just headed in the wrong direction. And I know, you're right. They were competitive. They lost a lot of close games. It's been 4 years or 3 years since you've been to the postseason. His value is dwindling right now. So yeah, you're right. You have a chance to go ahead and put it together and make a run next year, but you also have a chance to be 6-10 next year in the same exact spot you were this year.
I mean, I could see, and you're right, and I didn't realize that they had that many bad seasons since the Super Bowl, but maybe then you take that package deal. You take Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and ship them out to the San Francisco 49ers
Oh my goodness.
Because, I mean, John Lynch is aggressive. I'm sure he's thought of that. And, you get an upgrade at quarterback. You get the ultimate upgrade at wide receiver.
Yeah. Jimmy Garoppolo is almost certainly going to get cut this offseason, in my opinion. So, yeah, I would love them to make a deal like that. I don't know if the 49ers have the pieces to do that, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know what you would have to get. I mean, you'd have to mortgage a lot.
Yeah.
But you'd be in win now mode, and you'd have the rest of Matt Ryan and Julio Jones's career to win. So, I don't know. That's an interesting thought. I would like to see some traction on that. John Lynch, if you're listening, get going.
Go, John.
Yeah. Although, let me ask you, as a 49ers fan, would you rather have Matt Ryan and Julio Jones or Deshaun Watson? Because they would probably end up costing you the same.
Deshaun Watson. That's not even close to me. Give me Deshaun Watson. He's 25. Basically, if we get Deshaun Watson, you've got a quarterback on a Hall of Fame track for the next 10 years. Yeah, it's easy. Deshaun Watson all the way.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, switching gears a little bit, we're going to round out this week in sports with some NBA talk. It's some interesting stuff in the NBA. Again, we're progressing along in the season. The Sixers end the month of January 6-1 run. They closed with a win over the Lakers, which was pretty impressive. Last second shot by Tobias Harris of all people, so he's coming on. Minnesota and Indiana over the last week. They're doing okay. Are the Sixers for real?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, at this point, first of all, I just want to give the Sixers some love here. There isn't much new here. They've been doing this whole season. They've been playing good basketball, and I was very impressed how I watched that entire game against the Lakers. I was impressed how they pulled it out. I think this team is maybe one of the 5 most dangerous teams in the NFL in the NBA right now. And I'm starting to believe more and more. I'm still going to take a wait and see attitude because of Doc Rivers' postseason history, because of the Sixers' recent postseason history. We kind of have to take a wait and see attitude, but I'm starting to believe right now.
Yeah, I think with Doc Rivers, apparently Doc Rivers has the magic elixir to get Tobias Harris to play like the contract they paid him to play for. And I think Ben Simmons, it looks good because it feels like the pressure is off of him to have to be a scorer, because he's just not a natural scorer. That's not what he does. Mm-hmm. And they've been trying to force him to do that for the last few seasons, and it doesn't work. And I think that Doc Rivers is smart enough to know and realize, okay, let's let this guy be good at what he's good at instead of trying to make him something that he isn't. Joel Embiid has been playing well. He's been relatively healthy for the most part. And, he's getting work out of Tobias Harris. And they have a good team. I mean, they have a good team top to bottom. Seth Curry, still there. He's producing. It's another scorer and another person that can take some pressure off Ben Simmons to let him be, sort of a poor man's Magic Johnson. Let him pass the ball. He wants to pass the ball. Let him pass the ball. And that's okay. And I think that system and that formula is working. They're 15-6. Quietly, no one's really talking about the Milwaukee Bucks at 12-8, and the Nets. The Nets, if they could play, I don't know if the Nets could play any defense at all, they would be in first place right now. And the Nets will refuse to do anything except on the offensive end of the glass.
Do you realize that? The Nets, because we've moved on to the Nets, they've been giving up 134 points per game in the last 3 contests. What'd you say?
Regulation time. Sorry.
Yeah, regulation time. Yeah.
It's been going to overtime.
I was looking at their entire month of January. In 17 games, they've held 3 teams below 109 points. Every other team has scored 109 or more. That's just, that can get you by in the regular season. When it's just different, when you're, hey, I just have the best 3 players on the floor, game over, right? But in the postseason, it's different, and perhaps this is something they can figure out. It's still early in the season, but I don't really have a lot of confidence. Unlike when I look at the Sixers and say, I feel like I'm kind of buying in on this team having some staying power. I worry about the Nets once they get past the first round of the playoffs, right? We know they're going to be a top 4 or 5 seed. They're going to make the postseason and then probably steamroll whoever they play in the first round. But once they get into that second round against another quality opponent, I worry that their defense is just not going to be good enough. We'll see.
Yeah.
And having Steve Nash as your head coach is not going to help.
And I was just going to say, having Mike D'Antoni as sort of an assistant coach there this has his fingerprints all over it. It feels a little Houston Rocketsy, where it's like, hey man, let's go out and we're just going to score in the first 8 seconds, and where everybody's going to have 40 points, and we're as long as we score more than the other team, we're going to win. And that formula works, like you said, in the regular season. And then it doesn't when you play teams who can play defense, because you're not going to be able to score 150 points a game. So it's entertaining. I'll say that. It's fun to watch. Kyrie Irving, he's playing well. I'll give him credit. They seem like they're figuring it out as they go. I'm so happy Kevin Durant is healthy and playing basketball. When he plays, the league is better for it. But
absolutely.
In the East, I mean, we already talked about the Bucks. They're kind of 4-6 on the road. Same thing with the Bucks. I feel like they're a regular season wonder. The Nets.
I mean, they're a very up and down team. The Bucks. It's just the one thing I'll say about the Bucks, and I'll just be real quick about this. They traded 2 first-round picks to get Jrue Holiday to replace Eric Bledsoe. Eric Bledsoe averaged 14.9 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, and 5.4 assists last season. But Jrue Holiday is basically doing the same exact thing, and with the exception of playing a little bit better defense. So I don't think they've got the upgrade that they were expecting, and so they're basically kind of the same team, except everyone else has gotten a little bit better.
Yeah, and the Nets, I mean, they lost. Just to switch back to them for a second, they had a weird loss to the Wizards, but. Just to talk about Bradley Beal for a second, I feel like he's averaging, because he was a big reason why the Nets lost that game. Is why I'm bringing him up. Mm-hmm. Bradley Beal is averaging 35.8 points a game this season for the season, and he's just floundering away. And I think I said this off the air last week, and I was after that he blew up and went off for I think it was 44 points. Bradley Beal feels like the Deshaun Watson of the NBA. He's this unbelievable talent, and he's just on this garbage team, and he's so good. He's so good, and no one knows him because he's just in this murky, mired, terrible place. And I just let Bradley Beal go, please.
I mean, that would be they should, but for Bradley Beal's sake, they should. But that would be actually. Funny thing is, I think he's a free agent after this season.
I hope so. Let him go. He's got. He's just.
Oh no! He has 2 more years left. I'm sorry. He has 2 more years left. I was just looking at it right now. Yeah, no, he's. I mean, look, they should try and get something for him because they're just bad. But what are the chances that the person you get back? I don't want to go backwards, but just with the Lions and getting all those draft picks. They only win if they make good draft picks out of it, right? Like, if they end up making 3 terrible picks, then it's a loss. So, and that's what I would worry about if I was trading a guy like Bradley Beal or a guy like Deshaun Watson. Is like, okay, well, what are the chances? Let's say I get 3 first-round picks back. What are the chances that those 3 first-round picks are as good as Bradley Beal? Probably not very good.
Yeah, I mean, but it's the hope that you're buying into.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they're probably not. The odds are they're probably not going to be as good, but there might be, Michael Jordan 2.0 or 3.0, I guess, if you count Kobe.
And you have to trust your front office. So.
Yeah, I would love to see Bradley Beal just anywhere. Put him on any of the West teams. Put him on the Nuggets. Put him on the Blazers. Put him on the Lakers. I mean, forget about it. I know him and LeBron are kind of friendly. And speaking of that, the Western Conference. Let's switch over for a second. Clippers taking over first place from the Lakers. They're 16-5. Lakers lost back-to-back games for the first time this season. Sixers and Pistons. I don't know why would they. I don't know how they lost to the Pistons is beyond me.
The back-to-back game on the road, maybe. Give an excuse, but
the Sixers, like we talked about, the Sixers look good, so maybe they. I feel like the Lakers are going to get everybody's best shot because they are the defending champions. So I guess it's not that surprising, and the
Lakers. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say it's a marathon, not a sprint. So maybe it's LeBron kind of doing his own version of load management and just kind of taking it easy when he wants to.
Well, in that second game, I just remembered against the Pistons, they were without Anthony Davis because he had a bruised quad, right? So they rested him, and I think you're going to see that a lot with the Lakers this year, whether it's LeBron or Anthony Davis or whomever. Anytime anyone has anything like a little nick or a bruise, they're going to say, you know what, just sit out, sit out this game because we've got bigger fish to fry. We've got bigger plans than this, late January regular season game. And that's kind of what happened. The Lakers, I don't think anyone thought they were going to go, 73-9 or anything like that. So they're going to be a 60-win team or high 50-win team. As far as the Clippers, listen, they have a top 5 defense. They have 2 really good scorers in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. It's kind of similar to the Sixers with them, though. Let's wait till the playoffs because they really came up very small last year in the postseason. So, I mean, it's nice to see that someone's challenging the Lakers at the top of that division. But
yeah, and the Lakers, the Lakers, like you said, it's sort of that Greg Popovich Spurs feel where it's like, yeah, we don't really care about the regular season. As long as we into the postseason, that's when we're going to have all steam ahead. It's not going to be we're 50 wins, we're 60 wins, we're 70 wins. It's irrelevant because what matters is winning championships, not being the best team in the regular season. And it's hard to argue with because Spurs are pretty successful. And, the best team at the regular season has been the Bucks for the last couple of years, and they have not done much when the season's over. So there is something to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Jazz had their 11-game winning streak snapped at the hands of the Denver Nuggets, which was interesting. I mean, those two teams, they're not mirror images of each other, but I think of them basically at the same time because they're both kind of, again, they're in this sort of obscure places. You don't really, the Jazz really haven't been relevant until recently since like the Karl Malone, John Stockton days, and Nuggets too. I mean, when's the last time, before Jokic that you saw the Nuggets, you were like, oh, I wonder how the Nuggets are doing. I mean, maybe when
they had Carmelo Anthony in 2009.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of, I feel bad because I don't always think of them. But yeah, the Utah 11-game winning streak, I mean, Rudy Gobert has been playing well. And I don't know, between these two teams, who do you foresee going further?
That's a great question. I think I like the Jazz to go further just because I think their defense is better. They're getting, listen, not only do they have Donovan Mitchell, who's a proven scorer. We saw him do it in the postseason last year. But they have a defensive, two-time defensive player of the year, Rudy Gobert, as you mentioned. Teams are only shooting 44% against them this year. But they also have some nice supporting scorers in Bogdanovic and Mike Conley and Jordan Clarkson. I really like this team's makeup. And I like the comparison that you said, because the Nuggets are a good team, but they're kind of, I look at the Nuggets and the Jazz kind of in that second tier in the Western Conference where they're not on the level of the Lakers, and we'll say the Clippers for right now. I mean, they're playing well. We'll say the Lakers and Clippers. They're kind of in that second grouping. We're like, well, they could make a jump. Maybe they could do something, but they're kind of still like a wait and see. Kawhi Leonard has a championship, so he kind of gets that extra boost, and so they don't have that championship pedigree yet on their team, and we'll see if they get it. As for the Nuggets, I mean, listen, this is a win they absolutely needed. If you look at their January, the Nuggets lost only 5 times in the month of January, which would normally be good, but the Jazz lost just 3 times. So you're in the same division. You just needed to get that win to kind of bring the Jazz back down to earth. Because if the Jazz win that game in Denver, then the Jazz are just, okay, well, are they the best team in the NBA right now? Now they've kind of been brought back down to earth.
Yeah, Jazz are 15-5 as of this moment, and the Nuggets are 12-8. So I mean, second place and fifth place respectively. So it's gonna end up being an interesting end of the season. Down towards the bottom, I'll just throw in my low light of the week is the Dallas Mavericks at 8-13. They're 13th in the West, better than only the Minnesota Timberwolves and the New Orleans Pelicans, who are also pretty disappointing this year.
Yeah.
The Mavericks, I mean, we don't have to talk too much about them because they're not good. They're my low light. My highlight of the week, by the way, is Fred VanVleet scoring 50 points against the Orlando Magic because, I'll give credit. Their Raptors aren't great right now. They're 9-12, but they're, I was very, very critical of that VanVleet signing because I didn't and still don't believe that he's an all-world talent. I think he's a better version of like John Starks in a way. It's just a more to John Starks, and he scored 54 points, so that's he wins this round. So good job for him. I'll give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, VanVleet, he's an okay player who can play. He's a good player who plays great from time to time. That's how I would describe Fred VanVleet, which is basically what John Starks was. Just quickly, just to pile on the Mavericks. Listen. The mature thing to do is not say "I told you so," but I'm not very mature, so I'm just gonna say when your second best player is a soft center, is 7'3", 240 pounds. I didn't realize how small he was. 7'3", 240 is tiny. And then your third best player is a glorified backup point guard and Tim Hardaway Jr. It's not going to be good. They're going to be battling for that 7 or 8 seed all season long. My highlight of the week are the Memphis Grizzlies. They have been quietly on a 7-game winning streak. And the reason that nobody really knows about it is because they had a 5-game break in between because of COVID. So they actually have now taken the lead in the Southwest Division with a 9-6 record. And I just want to, Ja Morant's averaging 20 points a game, or 20.7 points per game. I just want to give them some love where the love is due. They're playing very well, and they deserve a little credit. And my low light of the week, I want to give you credit here. I'm going to take the Portland Trailblazers. A few weeks ago, or maybe 2 weeks ago, we learned that C.J. McCollum was going to be out for 17 games approximately, nursing an injury. And the Blazers are 2-4 since his return, since his injury. And I remember when I texted you, you said, I'm not sure if the Blazers are going to make the postseason. And I was like, they have a top 10 player. They should make the postseason. And this is a notice to Damian Lillard. You don't get any excuses. If LeBron lost Anthony Davis, we wouldn't excuse him for missing the playoffs.
Nope.
If we're not giving Steph Curry any excuses for if they have, he has no Klay Thompson. We're not going to give him any excuses for missing the playoffs. At the end of last year, I was putting Damian Lillard in that grouping, right? And not necessarily at the top of that group, but in that top 10 grouping.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe even top 6, 7. If they don't make the playoffs, that's a huge knock against Lillard to me. So 2-4, not a good look so far.
He is averaging almost 29 points a game this season.
That's fair. It's fine. It's fine. But listen.
But one guy can't do it alone. I mean, we've seen it. LeBron can't do it all by himself.
He makes the playoffs all by himself. He made the playoffs almost all with terrible, worse teams than Damian Lillard had. Now he's better than Damian Lillard, but still, he made the playoffs.
Also in the East. So after
East.
Great on a curve because the West is much better than that West or the East was when LeBron. But yes, I mean, I'm not saying Damian Lillard is LeBron. I'm just saying that even LeBron only got so far. I mean, he made it to the finals, but he couldn't win by himself.
All you have to do is make the playoffs. I'm not saying they have to win, but if they don't make the playoffs, that would be a complete.
That's bad. Yeah,
and that's bad. And that's all I'm saying. If you're a superstar in the NBA, your team makes the playoffs. Period. So we'll see what happens.
I can't.
It's just 2-4 since the loss of McCollum. That's all. I just noticed that they haven't been playing well. I keep looking. I was like, another loss? Are you kidding me? So
Bradley
not a
Beal
good look so
the Trailblazers. How about that?
Yeah. Well, no one's talking about him in the top 10 right now, but maybe he should be. We'll see.
That would be interesting. Although Melo might get upset that there's a better shooter on the wall. He's got a bunch of better shooters in the team. But...
Yeah, I was like, what are you kidding me?
Yeah. All right. Let's take a break. We're gonna come back and we've waited long enough. We're gonna get to our Super Bowl breakdown and our picks for who's gonna win between the Chiefs and the Bucs. So stick around and we're gonna talk football right after this.
If you're sick with COVID-19 or think you might have it, take steps to help protect other people from getting sick. Stay home except to get medical care. Call the doctor before visiting. Separate yourself from others who live with you. Wear a cloth face covering to protect others. Cover your coughs and sneezes with a tissue and clean your hands right away. Avoid sharing items with other people in your home. This includes things like towels and bedding. Be sure dishes are washed in hot water or the dishwasher before anyone else uses them. Stay aware of how you feel. If you start to have difficulty breathing or if you're worried about your health, call your doctor. For more tips, visit cdc.gov.
Welcome back to the Benchwarmers podcast, where being all talk is actually a good thing. Now, back to the action. Or talk, I guess.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. I am still Lou Ruggieri. That's still Jose Ortiz. And this is still the Benchwarmers podcast. appreciate you spending some time with us. Hopefully it's been worth your while thus far. Hopefully you're following us along on either iHeartRadio podcasting or Amazon Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. NBA talk. We went over some news in the NFL earlier this hour. Matt Stafford to the Rams, in case you hadn't heard. Jared Goff to the Lions. Matt Ryan and Aaron Rodgers apparently are not being traded. And then some NBA talk, Eastern Conference, Western Conference. But now, Jose, it's time. It's Super Bowl week. Again, I started the show off by saying this is like my favorite and least favorite time of the year because it means there's one more NFL game and then it's just a vast emptiness forever. But we're not there yet, so there's still the build-up. Kansas City Chiefs, Tampa Bay Bucks. I mean, right off the bat, I don't know, wherever you want to start. Just to give some perspective, the last time the Chiefs met the Buccaneers this season was November 29th of 2020. The Chiefs won 27-24, and if you'll remember, that was the game that the Chiefs, Tyreek Hill, had basically a career day in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And so that was, hopefully the Buccaneers are going to learn from that and not single cover him that many times again.
Yeah, I mean, my initial thought was I initially just focused on the offense because both teams just have such exceptional weapons in the passing game. I'm not in love with either of their running games at this point. Obviously, it's Le'Veon Bell or I don't know. Is Clyde Edwards-Helaire going to be healthy for the Super Bowl? I don't think. Oh, he is. Okay, so yeah, you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you have Le'Veon Bell, and then on the other side you have Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones. So I'm not a huge fan of either of the running games. So this basically, to me, is going to come down to which passing game is going to be the most effective, which is not rocket science. You have two of the best quarterbacks in the game and the greatest quarterback in NFL history in Tom Brady and probably the future GOAT in Patrick Mahomes if he keeps playing the way he's playing. Yeah. I'm looking at how much pressure the defense is going to be able to put on the opposing quarterback without blitzing. I was looking at some next generation stats, and I saw that Patrick Mahomes in his career has a 116.5 quarterback rating when facing 5 or more rushers, which basically means if you blitz, it's over.
Yeah, you're dead.
And you're dead. And I couldn't quite find Brady's career stats in those same moments, but we already know just based on just watching him play for the last 18 years that he's amazing against the blitz too. And so to me, this and then on the other side of the ball, on the other side, Brady was only sacked 26 times this year. Mahomes is only sacked 23 times. So both teams do a great job of protecting their quarterback. And if you give these guys time, they're going to kill you. So to me, it's really just about what defensive front can maintain their gap discipline and still put pressure on the defense. Put pressure on the offense. I don't know. I mean, you would say that you would have to think that the Buccaneers would have the advantage there, but Patrick Mahomes is so mobile and so just effective outside of the pocket that I just can't picture them doing anything to him. You saw that the Bucks had one of the best pass rushes in the game. They have JPP, Shaquille Barrett, Devin White. I just think that the offense of the Chiefs is just too dangerous. They're just and then Andy Reid is too clever on his play calling, where I just don't know that the Bucks are going to be able to do anything really against them. And even though they have the superior defensive line, I still like the Chiefs to be able to get more pressure eventually on Tom Brady. They have two of the highest paid defensive linemen in the game in Chris Jones and Frank Clark, although they didn't perform that up to that standard this year. I mean, long story short, I believe in Patrick Mahomes. I'm taking the Chiefs 32-27.
Yeah, and just again for some more reference, so offensive-wise, the Bucks were 7th in the league this year. The Chiefs obviously were 1st. Defense, the Bucks were 6th, and the Chiefs were 16th.
Yeah.
Passing 1 and 2, Chiefs, Bucks, and then rushing, the Chiefs were 16th, and then the Bucks were 28th. So yeah, it is going to come down to a passing attack, and I think that I've gone back and forth with this because the Bucs defense is better from top to bottom. They have more playmakers, and they're just better. I mean, they're a run-stopping team, but then the Chiefs don't run the ball that much either. So that's sort of a moot point. And then passing, like you said, if you blitz, then it's not good for the defense. And Brady, as good as Brady is this season, he's not looked great in that second half against the Packers. And Aaron Rodgers and the Packers could not capitalize on 3 back-to-back-to-back turnovers. And I don't think that you can't do that against the Chiefs. You can't give Patrick Mahomes more chances to score. And that's the problem, is that the only way to beat him is to keep him on the bench. That's the only way you stop Patrick Mahomes from scoring, is if he's not on the field. So it's sort of, it comes down to, the Bucs offense versus the Chiefs defense and vice versa. I think that the Bucs defense is great, but I do think that team is just, they're so good. Like, it's pick your poison. What do? You cover Travis Kelce? Okay, well then Tyreek Hill is going to scorch you for 200 yards in the first quarter. You cover Tyreek Hill? All right, well then Travis Kelce is going to get 13 catches and 180 yards, and you're going to, it's going to be death by 1,000 cuts. They also have Mecole Hardman, who's there and is on any other team is the fastest player on the team and might be one of the top 5 fastest players in the league. It just so happens he's on the same team as one of the guys who's faster than he is.
You see that Scotty Miller said that he could beat Tyreek Hill in the foot race?
Yes, he said, yeah. Now, to his defense, he didn't say he was a better receiver than Tyreek Hill. He said, he thinks he's the fastest player in the NFL, which, if I'm a Bucs fan, I want him to say it. I don't want to be like, well, maybe, I don't know.
I'm the third fastest guy.
Yeah. I want my team, whoever you are, I want you to believe you're the best at your position no matter what, because I want you to have that supreme confidence. Scotty Miller, he doesn't look like he'd be the fastest, but he was clocked, I think, a 4.36, and he said that he thinks it was even faster because those were hand-timed and not computer-timed. So, I do think Tyreek Hill is faster, especially from maybe not in a 100-yard dash. That might be different, but in a 40 on a football field, I would take Tyreek Hill in a straight line.
In the course of a football game too, right? Like, not just off to the side, hey, you, me versus you. Like, in a football game, while guys are covering you, who's faster? Give me Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, and that goes back to Jerry Rice. I mean, Jerry Rice, he didn't have, what did he run, a 4.6 40? I mean, he was slow by all accounts coming out of the combine, but I think he even said, I'm fast when I need to be, or something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing, but basically, when someone's chasing me, I run a lot faster, which it's hard to argue with Jerry Rice when he's talking about production on the field. But this, I think Brady, I don't know, this team, the offense for the Bucs, I feel like should be better than it has been. It's been good, but I feel like it could be better. Against the Washington football team, we saw Chris Godwin forget to catch the ball 5 or 6 times. We saw Mike Evans against the Packers make a couple really big drops. And consequently, it cost Brady. A couple of those one of them was his fault, but then a couple were off the hands of receivers. And I think with a guy like Tyrann Mathieu, who is going to be, if I had to pick a player, and I'll ask you this, pick a player to be sort of the X factor on both teams. Like, who you're not thinking about, because obviously, you think Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes. Okay, fine. Tom Brady, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, whatever. I think Tyrann Mathieu is going to be the X factor for the Chiefs because he's like, I think I said this last week, he's sort of like Ed Reed light. He just has an instinct for the ball that, as good as Brady is, Ed Reed always gave him problems. Not saying Tyrann Mathieu is as good as Ed Reed, but he has a lot of those similarities where he just is instinctive and he has a nose for the ball, as they say. And on the Bucs, the Bucs, I think it's going to come down to a guy like JPP, like you said, or Shaq Barrett, who's going to have to get to Patrick Mahomes and get to him quickly because much like we saw Brady lose to the Giants in 2007 with that all-world offense, a good pass rush, a good front four can beat a great offense. So I think it's going to come down to a guy like JPP or Shaq Barrett, and they're going to have to get to Mahomes for them to even have a chance.
Well, so if you're my pick, I mean, since you already took Jason Pierre-Paul, because that's who I was going to take, I'm actually going to switch my pick for the Bucks as the X factor to Devin White.
Okay.
He's their starting inside linebacker, great player. He let's look at his stats. See, I think he had 7 sacks this season. I just want to go double check that. He had 9 sacks. I'm sorry, I robbed him of 2 sacks. He had 9 sacks this year. He's the guy who's going to end up probably getting matched up on Patrick Mahomes. I'm not Patrick Mahomes. Travis Kelce from time to time in coverage, and then also be kind of responsible for kind of keeping his eye on Mahomes when he gets out of the pocket. I really think if he has a big game, they have a chance to really get something, to really have get a win. And for the Bucks, I'm just gonna go back to I guess I'll pick Chris Jones. Right, you just got paid. You just became the third highest paid defensive lineman in the game. 7.5 sacks this past season. It's not bad. It's not great either. He needs to have a big game. He needs to be making his presence felt behind the line of scrimmage over and over in this game. If you told me it was a guy who if it wasn't had to be some X factor, I would pick Tyreek Hill, because as a 49ers fan, I saw it last year. You have this guy shut down for 3 quarters, not shut down, contained for 3 quarters. All it takes is one play. He gets himself free, and it's over. And that's how fast he is. Whether you double team him, you triple team him, if he's faster than all the guys who are covering him, it doesn't matter. And so I worry that he's the type of guy where they'll have a game plan, they'll have him covered for a while, and then it'll just be one play late in the 4th quarter where he breaks free. And that's what happened to the 49ers last year. One play changed the entire game. So,
yeah. And I think that, aside from one of the defensive line, I think Antoine Winfield Jr., who is supposed to play, I mean, he's sort of that same, he echoes that Tyrann. He has a little bit of that, even younger Tyrann Mathieu feel, but he's not as seasoned as Honey Badger is. So he does make mistakes from time to time, but you can see that he's got something, and he's got a good, he comes from a whole family, a line of football players. So,
yeah.
But Patrick Mahomes is just, between him and, like you said, Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, and not just that, but Steve Spagnuolo, if you remember, he was the defensive coordinator on the Giants when they beat the Patriots. I mean, he's aggressive, and the few times that we've seen Brady lose, obviously with the Giants twice, the Eagles Super Bowl, I guess Brandon Graham made a good play at the end to stymie that comeback that Brady had. But the other time was when the Patriots lost in Denver to the Broncos. You remember Von Miller, I think Brady got hit like 19 times in that game.
Yeah.
And I think that if you rattle him, and a guy like Steve Spagnuolo, he's aggressive, and he's beaten Brady before. I mean, what else do you need but that? So, you can rattle if you get to him early and often, and you can rattle Tom. Or like, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. I don't know if you can do that with Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, they seem like they thrive when they're down. It's the craziest thing. It's like they have to spot the other team, like we saw with the Bills. They spotted them 9 points, and then they were like, "All right, let's go," And it's like, even when they're down, they're not down. It just doesn't. It's just a weird feeling, and I've never seen a team who so consistently gets behind early and then just storms back. Where they're like a sprinter who just gets torched off the blocks and then just crushes people on the the back half of the track.
So what's your pick? So you're taking the Chiefs?
I think in a way I am rooting for Tom Brady in a way, just because while he's had a pretty good career, I think we can say. I think getting out from under the shadow of Bill Belichick, because that was the debate for so long, is that was it Bill Belichick and I forget who it was. There was some pundit for the NFL said, the Patriots could have won with anybody, and now we're seeing that's not really the case. I do think, I think making the Super Bowl while the Patriots didn't even make the playoffs is probably enough of a victory to prove that that's. It was more Brady than Belichick at this point. I think that it's still a little early, and I'm too concerned about the wide receiver. If I knew that everybody was going to play at 100%, I think the Bucs would win this game. But I've seen it time and time again where it's either Godwin or Evans or someone just, Cameron Brate, somebody just doesn't show up at full strength. And I think that the enormity of being in their first Super Bowl is going to be too much for at least one of those guys. And it's going to cost Brady. He's going to make mistakes. And if you make mistakes, like I said before, if you make mistakes like you did in the Packers game, in the second half of the Packers game against the Chiefs, you're not going to win the game. And I think the likelihood of that happening is higher than, keeping Patrick Mahomes stifled for 4 quarters. So I'm going to pick the Chiefs. I guess if I had to pick a score, 35-24, I'd say. I think that it's, I don't know if that's all going to be offensive. I think there could be some defensive scoring in there for the Chiefs if, Tyrann Mathieu can get a pick six or, goes off the hands of Mike Evans again.
I also think that the Chiefs have the best 3 offensive players in the game. Like, if you look, not in the NFL, but in this one game, where if you look at Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce, I think if we were ranking offensive players, I think all 3 of them would come before Brady or certainly Godwin or Evans. And I think that's a big deal.
It would have to be Evans as the best offensive player on the Bucs, I guess.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you feel about Brady, but yeah, I think I would take Evans too. So. Yeah,
I mean, in terms of just skill position, because again, Brady had a great season. Don't get me wrong, 40 touchdowns is nothing to sneeze at, but yeah, I think Mike Evans is. I'd probably put Mike Evans at there, but yeah, I'd still rather have Tyreek Hill. I'd still rather have Travis Kelce. So it'd be nice to see Gronk make some noise.
We haven't even talked about him. Yeah, Gronk could be an X factor in the game, actually.
I mean, he had 1 catch against the Packers, but it was a great catch. I think it was like a 29-yard gain that he had. He was just blocking most of the time. But he's still a big mismatch. And we saw him when they played the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game when he was on the Patriots. I mean, that changed the game. His big catch down the sideline. So he's still. While he's a little bit slower, he's still 6'9". He's still a gigantic human being, and he can still make plays. So I wonder if Brady, if things start getting a little shaky early, if he goes back to old reliable, and we see a great game out of Rob Gronkowski.
I would not be surprised at all. In fact, I would. If you were just taking prop bets, I might even put some money on Gronk scoring the first touchdown. Just it's always someone you don't expect. Yeah. I would not be. In fact, I might go look to see if I can put $5 on that somewhere.
I would put, and I might do this. I think Brady QB sneak. I think I could see that happen.
That's true too.
Brady loves his sneaks. So, all right. So I mean, that's gonna do it for our Super Bowl wrap up. We both picked the Chiefs. What did I say? 35-24. You said what?
32-27 for me.
All right, so we're pretty much in the same ballpark. I'm not going to be upset either one of these, whoever wins, honestly. I mean, I think the Chiefs winning kind of puts them on a different level. You can't not start thinking dynasty if they win back-to-back. And the last time we saw back-to-back Super Bowl champions, that was Tom Brady.
Yeah.
03-04. So and then you look back and see that the Chiefs, with an offsides call, I mean, they were a play away from going to the Super Bowl and probably beating the Rams. So that would have been 3 in a row. But that's, obviously that's the way.
And then you look at, we can talk about this all next year, because if Brady wins again, then the legend grows, and it's already grown, but it grows even more. Now he's got 7 rings, and it's just like, okay, this guy just. Now it's like not only is he the greatest football player of all time, he might be the greatest athlete of all time. And now you start getting into a different conversation. And if Mahomes wins a second and then only his 3rd year as a starter, I mean, where do you even go from there? Where this guy, he's 24 years old, I think, and it's just the sky's the limit right now. So it's going to be some legacies written.
Charles Haley was the big, he was the answer to the trivia question: who's the only player with 5 Super Bowl rings?
Yeah.
Oof, yeah, long gone. So, all right. So next week, we'll recap the Super Bowl. We have our awards ceremony because all the NFL awards are going to be the day before the Super Bowl, I believe. So we're going to touch on our awards called the Benchies, and we'll kind of talk more about that. We have some some fun categories. Give back your salary award,
contract. Yep.
Free
Least valuable player.
Freedom Award, set this player free. There's a lot of fun things we're going to get to. So it's a little bit different take. Some of it's a little negative skewed, but that's okay. I'm happy with that. We don't need the easy ones. So stay tuned for that. I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl. I just hope that it's a good game. That's all I hope. I just want to see something that's fun and reasonably high scoring. I don't want a replay of the Rams Patriots snooze fest where it was like, oh wow, there is a touchdown. Oh great, okay, there's one.
Boring game ever. Most boring Super Bowl ever.
Just
that I saw.
Yeah, but worst one I've seen in a long time. So hopefully this is much better, and I think it will be. So all right, that's gonna do it. So for Jose Ortiz, I'm Lou Ruggieri. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.